So today I'm going to show you how to make some stitched greetings cards. So what you'll need is some card, some thread. I tend to use offcuts, but you can use embroidery thread, yarn, whatever it is that you've got lying around. You'll need a needle. It's also helpful to have a pin with a nice kind of top to it. And then to make a template, if you need one, you'll need some paper, some scissors, maybe a ruler and a pencil. A template. So for this card, I am going to make a heart design. So I've already got a template made. And the easiest way to make a heart template is to fold your bit of paper in half and then draw half a heart, cut around it, and you'll end up with a symmetrical heart. Doesn't matter if it's perfect because it is just a template. When you're ready to make your holes for your design, open your card out so that the front is lying flat on your table, and it's useful just to have a bit of cardboard that you can slide underneath so you don't poke holes in your table. Place your template where you want it in the card. You can place it central, you can put it in angles, you could do a couple of different shapes if you wanted, but I've just put mine straight in the middle. And then we start by making the holes because it just makes it a little bit easier when you start stitching to have those holes pre-made. And you just take your pin and just push it through the card and make the holes about 5mm apart is what I'd recommend. If you get them too close together, then you end up with the potential of the card kind of tearing in between each holes. So I've actually pierced the holes in the card already. You can see that there. So you end up with the outline of a heart shape. And now it's time to start stitching. So take your needle and thread the thread onto it. I'm starting with just one strand of embroidery floss, and I've created a knot in the end. Just make sure that the knot is going to be bigger than the hole you're creating in the card with your needle. Pick a hole to start with, it doesn't matter where you start, and from the back push your needle through the card, and it may be that you've only got a slight indentation when you pierce the holes. That's fine, because when you push your needle through, you make it a little bit bigger. And you can see there that when it pushed through, it made a dent in the top. You can always use your nail just to push it back down if you want to. And then this technique is so easy. You just, from wherever you brought the thread up, you just decide which angle you want to take and take your needle back down. And then you turn it over and pick another starting hole. It doesn't need to be right next to it, it can be anywhere, but the closer to where previous stitch was, the less thread you're going to use. This time I'm going to take it down here so that it crosses over a little bit. And just keep on going with the thread, and you can pull it tight like this to decide which angle you want to go with. So I'm going to go there this time. And unlike sewing with fabric, you'll need to turn it over each time you want to start a new stitch, because you won't be able to kind of use the tip of the needle to feel where the stitch is gonna come through. So you just keep on going like this until your thread runs out. So maybe that one, I'll go down there. And I don't think I'll get another, I won't get another cross out of this, so I'm going to tie off my thread here. Instead of using knots at the start or end of your stitching, You could use a bit of tape, a bit of washi tape or something like that. But if you want to just tie off your knots, just pass the needle under one of your previous threads once, and then a second time to create a loop and pass your needle through that loop, and it will tie a little knot. And if you want it to be extra secure, just do that again. And then you can snip off that end. It's a good idea to keep the ends short, otherwise they may get caught up when you come to stitch the next bit. I'm using a different shade of pink this time, and you can carry on with the same shade if you wanted to. It looks really effective if you stitch it all in the same shade, but I'm going to kind of mix and match my shades. And again, I pick a starting point at random. Oh, that knot isn't quite big enough, it's come through, so I'm just going to bulk that knot up a little bit and try again. That's better. So, if you see there, if I stitch it like that, it's in parallel with this line I stitched earlier, and I kind of like to try and make them as different in terms of angles as I can. I'm not flipping my card over completely because I'm working in a little bit of a tight space, but it's a lot easier if you've got a bit of room to just flip it over completely when you need to. And you can use different thicknesses of threads. I did a really nice one where had some really thick threads, but then some thinner, fluffier threads that really stood out. You could add sparkly threads. It's kind of, there is no pattern, just stitch it how you feel, which is a really great way of being creative. You could go down the same hole more than once if you wanted to, and you can add extra holes if you want to as well. You can make them a little bit closer together so you get more stitching. And you can see that as I start to build up the threads, you're starting to get the heart shape appear in thread. Let's see if I've got enough thread for this last bit. I'm going to go down the same hole there. Just turn it over so I can tie it off. Oh, my needle's come unthreaded there. Sometimes this thread has come a bit worn, so I've just snipped off the end to make it easier to thread my needle. Because I haven't got much thread left, it's a bit difficult to manoeuvre to tie the knot. So you can push it through backwards as well. Just be careful of your fingers if you're doing that. Just threading the needle. Actually, I might do this one double as it's a longer bit of thread, and also just to give the card a bit of difference by doing something a bit thicker. Again, I'm going to pick a starting point at random. You can do short ones like this. But the aim is to try and stitch in every hole. And you can see where the gaps are, like there's a gap there where there isn't much stitching, and there are a few gaps here where there isn't much stitching. So for my next stitch, I'm gonna try and fill this gap in a little bit. And at the moment, because this is such a light pink, it's standing out quite a lot. But you'll be surprised when you add the next layer of colour, how it doesn't stand out quite so much. Again, it's quite quick to make this. You can spend a lot of time on it. You could put lots and lots of layers. You could go over holes that you'd stitched through already if you wanted to add more and more layers, but just do what feels right, how much time you've got, how much thread you've got, how much patience you've got. And this is something that you could do with kids as well. Right, if you just see there, I've got a bit of a baggy back to this bit of stitching because I didn't pull it through tight enough. That should be okay, but what I may do at the end, if it's kind of pulling on the front, is just pop a bit of tape over. So yeah, you can do this with kids, but I'd recommend you doing the piercing of the holes, because you don't want their fingers to get caught up, and that's probably the most dangerous bit. And you can also then give them a needle with a round end, something like a cross stitch needle for this part would still work. So you see, by adding this next layer, the previous layer of really light pink doesn't stand out quite so much. You don't have to use pink for a heart. I just picked this because I had a pile of pink threads from a previous project that I was doing, and it seemed right for stitching a heart. Right, where have I got holes that have not yet been? There's one. You don't have to use all the holes, but as you've made them, you might as well. So you see this thread here, this is a bit baggy, so I'm going to have to do something on the back about that. I think this is going to be my final stitch, and it may be that I can help tighten this by looping round this and when I tie off this last thread. Don't worry about what the back looks like. I think the person you're giving the card to is just going to be really happy that you've been creative and made them a card. So just pulling that as tight as I can, popping a bit of tape over it, and there you go. One heart shaped embroidered greetings card.